This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
You're listening to Beyond Boss Fights, gaming conversations with interesting people. And now, here's your host, Braxwolf.
Hello, everybody. This is Braxwolf, and welcome to Beyond Boss Fights, Episode 11. I'm sure you heard the new promo at the front of the show, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more when we get into the What Have I Been Doing This Month section of the show. But for now, let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Today on the show, my guest is Lonrem, the community manager of Anook.com, and we talk about some of the social aspects of gaming. Everything is social nowadays. We've got social networking, we've got social computing, we've got social gaming. Social has infiltrated every aspect of our lives, and it's probably a good thing, but that's one of the things we talk about, because there's also downsides to being constantly connected. I asked Lonrem a few questions about what it's like to be a community manager for Anook.com, which is a social gaming site. He tells me a few stories from his days as a guild leader, and we talk about the evolution of social from 15 years ago to today. But before we talk about any of that, my daughter is going to educate us about one of her favorite games. Today I have with me Penelope. They can't see you wave, Penelope. Penelope, I have one question for you to start off. What are the kids playing?
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing. Which version of Animal Crossing? Do you know? It's called City Folk.
City Folk.
It's the version for the Wii. It's an older version of the game. So tell me, what do you like about Animal Crossing?
Meeting new people.
What do you mean meeting new people? Do you meet actual people?
I'm talking about the animals. You can go to their house or find them walking around your town.
Mm-hmm. What can you do when you meet new animals in the game?
You can talk to them and they might invite you to something.
What kind of thing? Like a party?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you do there?
One time they asked me if they could come to my house, and I got on and they weren't there.
They stood you up.
Yeah. I don't get it.
You can do a lot of things in Animal Crossing. I've seen you guys do all kinds of things like plant trees and dig up artifacts and sell things and buy things. What other kinds of things can you do in that game that you really like to do?
You can go to the city.
You can take a trip to the city.
At the city, there is like a shoe shining thing. You can get your hair cut and go to a model room.
Okay. You can change the way your character looks?
Yeah, and there's a couple of stores.
What can you buy there?
At Gracie Grace, there's a lot of very expensive things. And at Red's, you need an invitation and 3,000 bells.
Okay, bells is like money in this game, right?
Yeah, to go into Red's the first time, and then once you have an invitation, 3,000 bells, and go in. And if you go home and you come back to the city like the next day, then you don't need 3,000 bells or an invitation anymore.
How do you make all this money that you're spending at all these stores in the game?
Well, you can pick up the flowers. You can...
You sell the flower to somebody?
You sell the flowers to Tom Nook.
Oh, Tom Nook, he's like the flower dealer.
Yeah, and you can also sell fish and bugs and...
You can sell bugs?
Yeah. And you can also sell the fruit.
Okay. So you find things around the world and you sell them, and then you can use the currency to buy stuff at the store, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They call that kind of game kind of a sandbox game. That means you can go in and play in it like a sandbox however you want. There's not like a single thing that you're supposed to do. There's just, they set up the systems for you, and then you can play with it however you want. Kind of like when you're in the sandbox, you can make whatever you want out of sand.
Okay.
Right? Did you know that?
No.
It's kind of like, that's what they call that kind of game, is a sandbox type game. But this one's just kind of interesting because it's kind of like a sandbox game for kids. So if you could change one thing about Animal Crossing that you don't like, what would it be?
I would change that there's only one fruit. I would make it so, like, there's all different kinds of fruits on the trees. Like, in my world, there's only pears, and I went to one of my friends' houses, worlds on...
That's one kind of interesting thing about this game, right? Is you can go and see one of your friends' worlds if they play Animal Crossing on their Wii, and you can visit them and maybe bring a fruit back from their world if it's different than the fruits that you have.
Yeah, I went to one of my friends' worlds, and I got an apple, and so now we have apples and pears.
Oh, okay. So you have two different kinds of fruits because you went to your... Can you still go to your friends' houses on this game? I don't remember. I think they might have shut that down.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that Nintendo decided not to support that feature anymore.
Well, you can call them on the phone or something, and if they play Animal Crossing, you can ask them for the friend code because they give you a friend code anyway, and you make them a friend, and you can send mail to them.
Oh, okay. So you can send almost like email in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Fun. Say your friend has never heard of Animal Crossing before. How would you talk them into playing the game with you?
First of all, I would tell them about the game, and then I would, if they came to my house, then I could show them the game, and I can show them all the special features that you can do, and they can do it if they want to.
They can try it at your house, see if they like it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you for being my special guest today. Lonrem, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being on today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
What we usually do is we start out with the definitive gaming history segment of the show, and I've kind of explained to you and explained to previous guests that this is kind of to give you a good 5 minutes of where you've come from in your gaming history, where you started, and what you played along the way, and how you've gotten to what you're doing today.
My first games were on the SNES, playing from Christmas of whatever that year was. Started doing with Legend of Zelda. Thought that was amazing. That was actually the game that motivated me to read. My mother loves that story. Should tell everybody. Then Bomberman with my mother. Tetris. Started to move into platforms and stuff like that. And that was a lot of the SNES era. After that, I moved into more shooter console type stuff with GoldenEye on the N64, PlayStation. Then, lo and behold, my uncle introduced me to online games like Anarchy Online, which is my first MMO. I still compare other games to Anarchy Online because it was, my formative game. After that, moved into other like online shooters. Then introduced myself to WoW via the beta, and just couldn't bear the idea of actually paying a subscription since my parents weren't going to. Then I introduced it to my girlfriend, who's now my wife. So that was like 6-7 years of WoW that became our dating while we were in college. Now it's the occasional MMO, lots of co-op shooters. Payday 2 is the big one these days for me. A little bit of Battlefield, but Battlefield 4 sucked. Now I'm looking forward to Borderlands a lot, more Payday, Civ. The Civ series is starting to work its way into my my normal playtime. I enjoy the turn-based, and so I can just get up and walk away and do other stuff.
You can get up and walk away from Civ.
It's the advantage being, I could actually pause it, I guess I should say. It's like, I need to stop this and go do this thing. Okay, now I can alt tab back over. I don't have other folks waiting on me. It's not real time, and there's no shooters out there anymore that have a real story. I mean, you get Deus Ex every now and then, and what was the other big one? Far Cry. Some of those ones where I can enjoy my shooter on my time, and I can pause when I want to, but most of the time it's all just co-op and it's all multiplayer. So the time to sit down and have a single player adventure, shooter is fairly rare. But you've got like Assassin's Creed, Shadows of Mordor. That's another big one that I've been playing recently too. So yeah, I kind of hit it all. Racing and sports, not so much.
So I want to go back because part of the show is really to let people tell their stories. And it sounds like you've got a good one here because you mentioned that, was it The Legend of Zelda that taught you how to read?
Yeah. I was homeschooled. So I grew up in Japan on a Marine base. So no, I didn't learn Japanese. No, I didn't get a lot of that culture. I tried sushi in Japan. I tried shrimp in Japan. Those are my big formative Japanese things. I know how to say konnichiwa and konbanwa. That's it, folks. But yeah, I was homeschooled and I learned to read, and my mom teaching me and all, but I wasn't really motivated to. I was at that age where there were no real stories for me to read, and my parents didn't know how to get me engaged in reading. I was very young, and then lo and behold, Legend of Zelda comes out, or rather, I got it, and I got fed up with constantly asking my parents, "What does this say? What does this say?" And them saying, "We'll sound it out. We'll sound it out. We'll sound it out." And eventually, it was like, "Forget it. I'm going to do this." I still have flashbacks. Like I can remember exactly what I was doing when I got the Master Sword for the first time. I had that etched in my brain. Everything gets compared to that. And it's one of those games that I will still pull out, whether on the original console or on an emulator. And I've just got to beat, Link to the Past, once every year. I just go and boot it up and play start to finish. I just have to.
See, who said video games aren't good for you, right?
Oh yeah, I know. And my mom's a teacher, and she loves when other teachers bring that up because she'll whip that story out so fast, and she loves it. So yeah, no, video games are great for you. Now, getting too caught up in them, playing games above your maturity level, that's another podcast.
Actually, my son had a similar experience. He didn't realize it. This was back in the day where you would go and buy the program on CD-ROM. Right. It was basically like a flash game, like you would play in your browser now, but you'd have to go buy it. And we got him at a garage sale, a kindergarten letters game that he would play all the time as a little kid. I mean, before kindergarten. And he actually learned his letters before he could actually pronounce them. I mean, because we had a little mat downstairs that had the alphabet on it. We'd say, "Go stand on this letter," and he'd go stand on it, but he couldn't say it. He'd try and pronounce it, and he wouldn't say it right. So it was kind of like you just accelerated that part of his development.
That's pretty awesome.
The topic today is social and gaming, and the reason that I asked you to be on with us, Lonrem, is that you're kind of double social in my book. Not only do you work for a social networking gamer site in Anook.com, but you're also the community manager of that site. So that's another social thing for the social site. So you're basically the most social expert I know.
Oh, good Lord. Heaven help you.
So you said something also in your definitive gaming history that interests me a little bit, especially considering the topic. You said you were homeschooled and you were in a country where you didn't really speak the language. Did gaming play any part of your social development at that time?
Yes and no. I don't know how much it was compared to anybody else growing up, because I did live on a Marine base and there are other kids there. But the thing that we ended up doing most was playing video games. For some of my friends, I know they were into video games because all the kids were. But I know there were a couple others who, they were really into, that was all we would do. And, my parents or their parents would have to shoo us out and, go outside, the sun's up, go be a kid outside, and we're like, no, Mario's cool, we're good, thanks. But yeah, if I hadn't had video games back then, I probably would have been an even worse social outcast when I finally joined public school.
So there's a lot of social in games now. I mean, just built right into the games, but there's also a lot of social that surrounds the games. How do you think that the social aspect of gaming has changed over the last 10 years or so?
Well, from my personal experience, I've flashed back to, oh man, all of a sudden I realized, where was I a decade ago? And I realized, no, I was not in elementary school. Oh, wow. But yeah, a decade ago.
You can go back further if you need to.
well, we'll stick with a decade. But it's changed so much because when I was, 10 years ago, broadband internet was just becoming a thing. So we were just making that transition from rumors, and anybody who's my age or older remembers there's totally a way to bring Aerith back. There's all that stuff, all those internet kid rumors that just got spread, and that changed from all this these made up all these lies. They were lies just to be cool, and now it shifted because that you were called out on that. So now it went from being this hobby where it was engaging the imagination, even if it was, these lies, to it's changed to be competitive. It went from let's imagine this stuff together to competitions. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing or anything, but that's been the major crux, and I think that's the biggest thing that's changed. At least in my experience, we went from making up stories and talking about what would be cool to esports, to all these other competitions and stuff like that have become the crux, the kind of focal point for a lot of gaming. Even in, MMOs, where it's not about let's check out the story. I mean, we laugh, we make jokes about the story because no, it's just about let's get to the end game. Let's raid. Let's take down the final boss. You can probably go ask most competitive, high-level leaderboard setting raiders, and they probably don't even know the story, the basic story of the game that they're playing. And we've lost. Now, of course, that's not necessarily the social aspect, but I think that's the interaction between players that has changed.
Well, that's a good point though, because it's the social aspect of raiding that has kind of overshadowed the rest of the single player aspects of the game.
Yeah, even with the advent of MMOs and then specifically WoW, we've switched from let's go explore this story, let's go learn this stuff, let's go experience this, to let's go beat the new boss, which is it's a challenge and it's an experience all its own. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think we've moved away from the imagination aspect of video games, and I'm not okay with that, but I'm not a game developer, so I can't really do much about it.
Obviously, technology has contributed to this social change. You mentioned broadband just coming into fruition, and especially as that has gotten more prolific and better, the social aspects within the games themselves have gotten better as well. But is there other things that you think has contributed to that change? Was society just ready to be more social on a grand scale?
I think so, and I think this is, again, the broadband internet, and I can't even remember who it was that said it, but as our technology has grown, our world has gotten smaller. Airplanes were the big things first, that brought everybody closer, because you went from being, days of travel away to hours. With the internet, that time, distance doesn't matter anymore, other than time zones. The social aspect, the ability to play games with other people. I've got buddies now that I can play games with that I haven't physically seen in more than a decade, that I can still play games with and pop on. And, distance doesn't matter anymore with some of these different friendships that people have developed. And that, I think, is probably the coolest thing that has changed with technology.
any other technological aspects that have contributed to that change besides just broadband?
I think, mobile phones have really helped, though that's not directly gaming, but it has helped connect people. I think the advent of, mobile, handheld games, I guess is the right term. Since the advent of handheld games, you have this spontaneous multiplayer, especially with, the DS, because that's become the big prolific one. You just, I've seen it at conventions. I've seen it on, trains where people will sit down and play, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're playing with folks nearby. I've seen it in conventions where, I was sitting waiting for a panel to start up, and people were playing, Mario Kart. I don't have a DS. I'm just watching. And then somebody wins, and you can hear them cheer, and you can see, and everybody looks down at them. Oh yeah, good job, good job. And they go right back to. They don't know each other. They don't need to know each other. But they can sit there and have this cooperative, competitive, however you're playing, experience together, and you don't need to know each other. And I don't think that lessens the social aspect just because it's a stranger.
In doing research for this episode, if you do, searches on social gaming or gaming with social or anything like that, typically what I found that comes up is social games like Facebook games, or like you said, mobile handheld games like Bejeweled or whatever the newest one is, Candy Crush. When you say social gaming, that seems to be what has taken on that label. And a lot of hardcore gamers actually react negatively to that term because of that. And they kind of, poo-poo the social gamers. But there's more to social gaming than just that type of game, isn't there? I mean, is there a difference in your mind between a social game and a game with social?
The way they're used, I think, is the primary thing, because obviously the words are nearly the phrases, words, whatever, are nearly identical. But you have the games where you're pestering your friends, Farmville, et cetera, and that's the social aspect of the game. But then you have some of these games that rely on playing with others. Payday is one, just because that's my big game right now, or Monaco. Or what was the one I was just introduced to? It's the Haunted, I think it is. And it's these co-op games that rely on you actually playing with other players. There are no NPCs in the case of the Haunted. It's just 5 players. 1 player is the bad guy. 4 others are the poor lonely teenagers in the cabin in the woods kind of thing. And literally, there is no AI to get involved. You can't play without the social aspect, and that, I think, is a positive form of games with social. And then you've got the social game, which is pestering your friends, annoying them with, I need sheep. Do you have sheep? And it's just like that to me. Yes, the Farmville is a game, sure, but it doesn't have a social aspect. There's no chatting. There's no interaction. It's just, I'm going to yell at the top of my lungs for sheep because I need sheep. Somebody give me sheep. Meanwhile, you've got, a game that relies around you playing with your friends and scaring your friends, things of that nature. That is a game that has social aspects and requires the social, but it actually benefits the game and the social circle that you have. You're actually playing a game together. Artemis, that was the other one I was thinking of, where you all man a ship. That's always really cool.
Yeah, in fact, you hit the nail right on the head. There was a couple articles I read that said, the ironic thing is that social games really aren't that social. It is more of a pestering thing. It is more of I'm going to send an invite or a request to so-and-so, but you're not actually on at the same time, and you're not interacting with one another as you're playing the game, like you are in a lot of MMOs, which aren't typically considered social games.
Yeah, you're right. And I do have to kind of argue about that. You don't necessarily need to be even playing at the same time. I know for the iPad, for instance, they were actually really working on some asynchronous play for a game. And they're board games. I'll spit it out. They're board games that you alternate turns, and so you don't have to be playing at the same table at the same time. And I still think that has some good social aspects. It doesn't have as good as it could be, but I think that at least would be better than, the Farmville aspect. So you can still play with your friends, you can still banter, leave messages for them and stuff like that, but you don't have to it can be asynchronous, play by post. I mean, old school chess by mail, the original asynchronous game. So the social aspect is still there.
So several years ago, I would say several, maybe like even 5 years ago, it was kind of a novelty to say we have these social things built into our game. Is that still a nice to have, or has social come to the point now that it's vital to be built into the games that are coming out today?
I don't think it's vital to have, but I do think it is a nice thing to have. Shadow of Mordor being a great example. I was playing, enjoying it, was talking with my buddy about it, and we were both just, oh yeah, this is great, and just having a ball talking about all the different stuff we'd done. The next day we were playing, he sends me a message, hey, remember that guy that you said kept killing you? I was like, yeah, so-and-so the Venomous. He's like, yeah, I have a mission to go seek revenge. Oh, I've lost the word, but Vendetta, I think is what it was called, and to go kill this guy because he's killed you a bunch of times. I was like, just the guy's name. And no, it has Lonrem on there. I was like, yeah, I'm avenging you. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Not a multiplayer game. His experience is completely separate from mine. But because of that connection, all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're actually kind of playing in not necessarily the same world, but there's a connection there. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, see, I told you that guy was a pain. I couldn't kill him. He kept killing me. And he was like, yeah, no, you were not joking. That guy, he said, yeah, it took me 2 or 3 attempts. I'm like, see, I was not, I wasn't a wimp. I didn't, I was not a noob on this. He was just, and all of a sudden you have that social aspect again where you can sit and complain, or it harkens back to old, Final Fantasy era, Final Fantasy VII. Oh, I just can't beat Ruby Weapon. It's just like, oh yeah, well, I tried this, I tried that, and it didn't work for me. And so you have, that social aspect where it doesn't mean you have to be playing the game together, but it brings people together and forces them. Well, it doesn't force them, but they're encouraged to talk about their experiences.
Yeah, that's a really interesting mechanic. I heard about that for the first time this week as well. Is that because you guys are friends on your Steam list? Is that why it shares those types of missions?
I think so.
Okay.
But I also remember seeing some other ones where it was, suggesting that I go, make a vendetta against somebody else, and I didn't recognize the guy's name. Now I'm actually real quick scrolling through my Steam friends list. I was like, yeah, no, I don't think I'm friends with him. So whoever he was, I was, getting vengeance for him. I don't know who you were, man, but I every time it popped up, I got vengeance for you. So
you don't feel quite as vengeful when it's somebody you don't care about and don't know.
No, I was really sad that I never had a chance to avenge my buddy. I should probably boot that game back up and see how many deaths might have popped up since then.
So with all the social that we've talked about and that's in the games of today, do you think it's equally important to the well-being of the gamer that these games include the social angle?
Yeah. So it has to be on the smaller end, because, like, for instance, raiding in an MMO can be done by 25, 40 people, or even less now with I think WoW has flex rating that allows down to 10 or something like that. And you can hop in and it's totally this social aspect. No, it's not. It's you and a bunch of other guys pounding away at a fight that you all have already know. There's no discussion. There's no need to chat. As far as I know, even with flex rating, you're not even encouraged to get in voice chat. You can just go do it. It's that easy. Now, end game stuff, maybe, but you don't have the same social aspect that you would with a guild or even small group kind of stuff. For instance, Destiny raids are down to just 6 people, and you're automatically able to be in voice chat together. And that puts you all together on a smaller frame of reference, so you can actually talk and who everybody is. You might not have in-depth knowledge of their real world aspects, but you can actually get to know these people and you can actually chat with them and actually be people, as opposed to Shadow Priest number 3. Why are you standing in the fire? scenarios. So yeah, if it's actually the small pointed 1-to-1 or 1-to-3, the small group kind of stuff, it's definitely good for the well-being of the gamer.
Yeah, and I kind of to give you some background of where that question came from, I don't want to generalize too much, but since I've become involved in blogging communities and things like that are gaming focused, I've met a lot of people that are very introverted or have some kind of anxiety issue or whatever the social issue may be. And it seems like technology in general, but specifically gaming for these people, has really kind of leveled the playing field from a social aspect. It's no longer the extroverts that are out there with all the friends and doing all the fun things, because now you're able to participate in social activities through something that you all enjoy, through a common game that everybody likes. So, I mean, to me, it seems like this has been a real boon to folks that have those type of issues and just have the personality that is not necessarily conducive to larger, more extroverted social situations.
Right. You don't go out and party. Well, as an example, my wife, she's definitely an introvert. She would much rather be at home on the couch with a book or TV or something like that. But wow, I mean, not using that as the exclamation, the game really got her to chat with people and talk, and became a lot more social and a little bit more outgoing. And it ended up reflecting even into the real world, where she went from being kind of shy and quiet and she still doesn't like to introduce herself to people, and she doesn't like to go to a big loud party, but one-on-one conversation with somebody she doesn't know, she doesn't shrink away from that. She's become more outgoing because, when she was hiding behind the anonymity of Wildens, her character name, it gave her, a little bit more, not even self-confidence, because that's not what introverts are lacking. They just don't want that interaction. Mm-hmm. And, it gave them a shield so they can step back and move away from that. That's actually one of the reasons why, a little bit of a plug here, that's why Nook does everything as a gaming identity. And so we're not asking for real names. You can be your gaming handle. You can be Braxwolf. You can be Lonrem. I can't even say my own name.
Did you forget who you were?
Yeah, I was just and you can hide behind an identity, and you don't have complete anonymity because admins know what's going on. We're tracking down, multiple accounts and stuff like that. But you have this identity that you can sit behind, and people don't need to know who you are behind that. They can just take you at the face value of what you put out. And you actually, and yes, it can lead to some trolling and stuff like that. But for the most part, people just want to have this other persona where, in the case of people who do have low self-confidence and stuff like that, they can go be this other person. They can be loud and boisterous and, have a good time. And they can just be Lonrem. They can just be Braxwolf. And they're not Ted from down the street.
Yeah, it might surprise some folks to find out that I'm fairly introverted. If I was to stand up behind a podium and speak to the number of people that download my podcast, I would be pretty scared to do that.
Well, hey, public speaking and all.
There's just something about sitting behind the technology that kind of levels it all out for you. And I think you're right. When you talked about your wife kind of gaining the ability to do some other things in real life, I've noticed that with myself as well. If I get into a situation where I'm feeling a little bit introverted or nervous, I just go back and go, what? Look at this other stuff I'm doing that these people don't even know about. I mean, it's crazy that I just created a podcast this year and whatever else I'm doing. We've talked about some of the benefits of the social connectivity within today's games. Do you see any detriments to that increased social connectivity?
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, they're all over the place, ranging from just, normal trolling and stuff like that promotes, it's cyberbullying, up to, you get swatting and stuff like that, to, some real nitwits that, are, threatening other people. And we're not even talking about the hashtag that's running around everywhere, because I'm not even going to give it a name. But even down to developers, Call of Duty developers, nerf a weapon. And it's such a minor nerf that even they don't know it's there. They're just nerfing it based on the math of it. Pro gamers say we don't even notice it. And they're still getting death threats over a nerf to one weapon on a video game. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. What happened to let's just go play a video game and have a good time, guys?
Right.
You've got, stalking and cyberbullying, which, from my time in WoW as a guild officer and stuff like that, I saw that a lot. People who were already quiet behind the mic and really didn't chat, and we were working on drawing out, and then people, rip into them because of a mistake in a raid. And it's like, yeah, that annoys everybody, but they were in the raid too. They failed too. It's a it's a group thing. And yet people decide that because they have that anonymity that they're just going to rip into people. And it's a really unfortunate thing. And I'm wholeheartedly against any kind of, bullying and trolling. Anybody who says, oh, I'm just trolling, and no, get out. Don't want you. I'll be honest, I would go straight up militant sometimes with some of this, the gamer community that push that stuff. And it's like, oh, I'm just teasing. No, get out. Don't want you here. I would rather you put up all your video games, donate them to some 12-year-old who actually remembers that video games are about playing and having fun. I'm not talking about the 12-year-olds that are cursing about doing unspeakable things to my mother. I'm talking about the kid down the street who's picking up Zelda for the first time and losing himself in a world the way I did when I was that young. I would rather those people be playing video games rather than pro gamer 23 that's playing COD and screaming at the top of his lungs, about things he did to my mother.
Yeah, and I think kind of the hard part about that is it really only takes a small handful of people to really not only ruin the experience of the folks that are around at the time, but also to tarnish the image of the rest of the community. And when you've got such a large pool like the world to pull from, the chances that that's going to happen just increase exponentially because of the amount of people involved. And so I think maybe that's one downside of the constant social connectivity is that, you couple that with anonymity, like you said, and that could be a real lethal combination for that handful of people that just want to ruin it for everybody.
Yep.
Have you seen, being that you're a CM and it sounds like you were a guild officer, and wow, you've seen a lot of these types of situations. Have you seen online social situations that impact people's real lives? Kind of like the hashtag that you alluded to earlier.
Shall not be named.
Yes.
Yeah. You've got stuff like that, but even down to the small scale, I remember, and it's like to this day, it's one of these like ghastly things that I'm like, I can't believe that happened. But literally we had a guild member who played with his longtime girlfriend, might as well have been wife. And they played together and they were a really cute couple and everybody loved them and thought they were great. And then he met this other guildie who was younger and pretty and flirty. And then he made some poor life decisions. And all of a sudden, not only did we lose, this really cool couple from the guild, well, and plus her, but I don't much care for her. and all of a sudden, not only did we lose cool guild members that we thought were awesome, but a long-term, like 6-7 year relationship was broken up because of what started as just a little harmless, air quotes, flirting that went too far. And it's just like that destroyed a relationship and did not, not coming back together. It's done. It's over. I've seen other people lose jobs because of, less so the online social situations and more just the ability to play video games with other people all the time. And they just get sucked into playing games with other people all the time. And we're not even talking like the guy spends 40 hours playing Diablo 3 and falls over dead kind of situations. It was just, this guy got up and wanted to play video games with friends and, just kept jumping from this game to that game and didn't go to work, didn't go to school, and just wrecked his life. And yeah, both of those happened in, my WoW guild, nothing against WoW, but that was just, where the experience happened. And it's really unfortunate to see, these people who, and I guarantee in the latter situation, it's because he had no social life and nothing really positive going on in his real life. So he just got sucked into the online world, which sadly does not pay the bills, does not put food on the table, does not keep a roof over your house, and does not increase your GPA.
Yeah, it definitely falls into the detrimental aspect of the social part of the game, because as I've talked about in previous episodes, we had some community episodes and we had a gamers and health episode where we kind of talked about the addictive nature of the games and how those are specifically built into, especially MMOs, in order to keep you stuck to the game, because they want you logging into the game. They want you coming back to the game. And the number one thing that brings people back to a game that they've done basically all the content for is the social aspect. So it's interesting that as beneficial as this can be to folks, it can also be a real detriment for those who have an addictive, I'm going to call it an addictive personality. That's something that you really have to watch out for when your entire life revolves around the social aspect of this game. So we talked a little bit, or you alluded to earlier, Anook.com, and I kind of introduced you at the beginning as working for Anook.com. You did a nice podcast. I'm going to plug Couch Potatoes, which is part of the Gaming and Entertainment Network, which I'm also a part of.
Yay!
And you did a nice episode with them, and you talked at length about what Anook is doing, and we're going to hit on that a little bit in this episode as well. So what exactly is your position at Anook.com?
As I mentioned in previous podcasts, I wear many hats, but to boil them all down, I'm the community lead for the website. And that'll range from internal community management to outreach, drawing in talent, as well as getting the word out with podcasts.
From a social perspective, and Anook is pretty much a social site. I've heard people say, don't hurt me. I've heard people say it's like Facebook for gamers, right? I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. But really, if you're going to tell somebody who doesn't know what it is, that's probably the quickest and easiest way that they could relate to it, right? Considering all of the social things that we've talked about that are built into games, that surround games like blogs and guild sites and things like that, what exactly is the gap that Anook.com is trying to fill from a social perspective?
Well, talking about blogs and guild sites to just start off with, the problem we see with a lot of those is unless you have two bloggers knowing each other and, hey, yeah, let's put our blogs on each other's blogs, the blog roll and stuff like that, there's no interconnectivity. There's no way for people to find them without going out and Google searching something or having the luck of, being linked via a developer's website or something like that. It's always this, trail of breadcrumbs kind of effect where in order to find a blog, you either have to luck out on showing up on a Google search, and sometimes that's due to, a very specific topic that you might cover, or it being linked elsewhere, or because of the unique topic, or because of a social aspect that, you had to know a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy. With a Nook, it's all there. So if you're blogging or making a podcast about a specific game, it'll show up to anybody on that games list who's following that game. So just a casual scroll of, what's going on in League of Legends, World of Warcraft, Rift, whatever game it is. You scroll through there, boom, right there, Braxwolf's podcast about such and such. And there's no need to have to Google search about it or to have linked elsewhere because it's on a Nook where hopefully, eventually, world domination, everything is, if not on a Nook, it's linked through and posted onto a Nook. And guild sites are the other aspect where a lot of times the guild is going to be specific to a game. There are multi-game guilds out there, but they're rare and they're usually ginormous. For the smaller ones, it's hard on a guild to actually get people to even show up to the forums unless they're really dedicated to that specific guild. They won't even show up to the guild forums, or at least won't participate. Sure, they'll pop in, they'll put their name down on the raid sign up, and then that's it. That's the start and end of their social interaction, because they're busy on Twitter or Facebook or another guild forum. By putting a forum on a Nook, hopefully that's where that user is going to be hanging out for all their gamer stuff anyways. So they're already there. They don't have to make a new account. They already have their Nook account, and they can use it at that guild forum and that guild forum and that guild forum. I've got a buddy of mine, some of our users, that are part of a MechWarrior clan. They're part of a Destiny guild clan thing. I think they're clans. And then also a WoW guild. And all three are on a Nook. And just by having one account, so he's constantly in contact with all of them. And it also creates connections, in the case of like guilds, to, oh, hey, you played that other game that's not the game the guild is about, so we can go play that together. Previously, you would have had to have, discussions that would have pointed you that, oh yeah, we play that game too. We're filling in all the cracks. So between Steam, between Origin, between Uplay, between MMOs, between consoles, a Nook just fills in all the cracks.
So I'm on a Nook, and I'm just kind of testing a little bit about what you've told me. It looks like I can post a status here under my Braxwolf name, account, whatever. And down at the bottom by the share button, there's a little button that looks like a gamepad that says add related game. And when I click on that, it shows me all of the games that I've told Anook.com that I play, that I'm following. So if I click on ArcAge here, it adds that as kind of a tag to my posts. And so is anybody that is following ArcAge, do they see my posts then when I do that?
Not on their home feed unless they're already following you. So I follow you on a Nook, for instance. I don't follow ArcAge. I will not see your post.
Okay.
However, your buddy who does follow you and does follow ArcAge will see your post.
I see.
People that don't follow you but follow ArcAge, well, actually, they won't see your post either. But if they go over to the ArcAge page, they will see your post there on the feed, just like any other game, any other post made about ArcAge.
Gotcha. So they specifically go to the ArcAge page to see everything that people have tagged ArcAge.
Right.
Okay. That's very cool. I actually didn't realize you could do that.
Yeah, the whole idea behind that is to help filter content. So, yeah, I like this guy, and he's my buddy, and we play these games together that are really cool. But he also plays Dota 2, and I don't care about Dota 2. Mm-hmm. So I'm not following Dota 2, so I don't see his Dota 2 stuff. Done.
Gotcha.
And that's actually really for YouTube users, because, for instance, talking about MOBAs, they kind of have this fanatical following, and if you talk about another MOBA that's not, that's not League or that's not Dota, all of a sudden you have this sudden downturn, and all of a sudden they turn against you, and it's a rabid horde, and it's just, what do you do? Simple. If they're following you on a Nook, they won't even see the post. They can just be blissfully ignorant that you even talked about Dota, though you're a LOL player.
So I've always said, or I've always thought at least, that community manager is one job that I would never, ever, ever want to do. Have you had any CM-related challenges yet with your position at a Nook?
Occasionally, they're childish things. I've literally had somebody report another person for harassment, and I follow it up, and it's like, how are they harassing you? Well, they're downvoting my posts. Yes, and that's harassment. Well, they're downvoting all my posts. Yeah, I'm failing to see the harassment. He doesn't like your stuff. Get over it. And it literally was turning into this back and forth thing, and I literally had to PM them both. I was like, guys, one of you is 35, the other is 27. Really? This is what we're doing? And that was literally all. And was it super professional as a CM to call them out like that? No, now it was in private messages, mind you, but it was just like, guys, really? This is like elementary schoolyard crap. What are you doing? And I didn't have to do a follow-up after that. I think I caused them to both realize, oh yeah, this is kind of dumb. They moved on with their lives. Some of the stuff, however, has been, we've run into some stuff where, I've had to actually, IP ban some users for some, I wouldn't even say heinous. It wasn't terrible, but it was definite, extreme, I hate the term, trolling. I mean, it was racist and homophobic. and one person sexist. And it's just like, if you don't get it, I'm willing to give everybody a second chance, because they're coming from the unwashed masses of the internet to a Nook. And they think, oh yeah, this is a Nook. It's another thing on the internet, so I can behave here the same way I behave on the internet. No, a Nook is special. There's a reason our tag is Welcome Home Gamer. You don't put your feet up on your sofa at your house, do you? So you don't do it in my house. And it's a place where for a lot of people, they just don't even know how to behave anymore. And being polite to people, and we don't care if you curse. That's fine, whatever. Just don't be cursing at other people. Don't be rude and insulting to other people. You can be mad and upset about something and still be polite. And that getting that message across, probably the biggest challenge for a Nook as a community manager.
I would imagine asking people to insert common sense back into the internet is quite a task.
Yeah, it's what's the term? Herding cats. Yeah.
I'm looking at a Nook, and it has the beta tag. So is this a real beta tag, or is this a Gmail beta tag?
No, it's definitely real. We're at that point where we have the vast majority of the features in. Some are still clunky. Some are still brand spanking new. The ignore feature actually just got added with the last update. Yes, we've been around for 2.5 years, and just now we're putting out an ignore feature, which I guess says something either about our development or about our community. I'm going to say it says something positive about our community. It's still in beta, but there's so much more that we want to add. But right now, the site is in a functional prototype stage. It is in beta. We will not remove that tag until we are satisfied that this is good to go, and we might ask for money. And this is to assuage the concerns. This is not going to be like, oh, you're going to have to sign up and give us a subscription kind of thing. But eventually we're going to ask for money for other features. The plan would be hopefully that it would be really big communities or YouTubers, or better yet, big name developers who are on the site and using the site, and they can actually basically bear the brunt of any additional costs. And the average Joe user can just come in and enjoy using a site that is free of ads, that is free of all that junk, and we can be fully functional, pay a salary to, like the community manager.
I hope you can do that too.
I look forward to it.
I'm pulling for you.
I actually made the mistake of promising that when I go full time, I'll dye my hair, and I said it on stream, and all of a sudden I realized there's going to be a VOD of this later. I can't get away with it. So yeah, that's out there, guys.
So I'm going to ask you one last question about being a CM, and I'm going to make it a two-part question.
Sure.
What has the most difficult part been, and then what has the most rewarding part been?
Definitely most difficult part has been actually getting the word out about a Nook. We are, a little background, we are self-funded, and by self-funded, I mean we have no money. And so there is no marketing budget. So for a lot of it, it's just getting the word out. And that's why I love coming and chatting with guys like you, so we can actually explain what a Nook is. And that's the most difficult part. Really, the community has taken it up. And we'll talk about that more, the most rewarding part, I guess. But yeah, the most difficult thing is getting people to understand a Nook is more than just Facebook for gamers. There's so many ways to share your content and to interact with people and grow an audience. If you're a content creator, a Nook is the place to go. If you're just a regular gamer and you're wanting to play stuff, yeah, come on, come on by, make a post. For a lot of people, hey, yeah, I play League of Legends, but I only play with, my couple buddies. I want somebody else to play with. Cool, come on down, make a post. I've seen it all the time. Hey guys, I want to play, normals. I play on NA. Who wants to play? And I've seen posts. Yeah, I'll play. Yeah, let's go. And don't know anybody. And it's just, that first gut reaction. Yeah, okay, you want to play? I want to play. Let's go. That, I think, though, ends up becoming the most rewarding aspect, is actually watching a Nook work. People meeting together. I've seen it. Actually, people meet on a Nook, and then later I'll see them tweeting each other on Twitter, obviously. And I just have that warm fuzzy of like, oh, look at them, they're hanging out together. And then I realized, hey, why aren't you guys making those posts on a note? Whatever. But actually, there was one time a user made some really ranty noises, just for lack of a better word, just raging about League of Legends. And it wasn't pointed at any specific user, so I didn't, have to come down on it. But it was just really unpleasant and negative. And I went down to make a comment of, hey, dude, just chill out. And when I opened up the page, I saw a number of downvotes. So it had disappeared off the game page. So nobody else was forced to see it. And a number of comments of, hey, dude, chill out. It's okay. And actually, there's one guy, shout out to him, motivation coach. I can't even remember his name now. And he literally made it his message to just go around and just encourage people. Oh, yeah, you can go for the next rank. Come on, you can do this. And it was just like, dude, what is happening? This is League of Legends we're talking about, home of the toxic users, and these guys are like encouraging each other. And in the case of that particular post, was just trying to calm this guy down and be like, hey, it's no big deal. Let's get over it. Let's go play a game. Hey, you want to play some ARAMs? Let's not curse like that. This is our home. And it was just like I just kind of sat back. I was like, my job here is done. I just gave a couple little upvotes on the comments and I walked away because I didn't need to do anything. And I was just like, they get it.
So what have I been up to this past month? Well, a lot, actually. And I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible, but convey as much information as I can. First of all, hearkening back to the beginning of the show, you heard a new promo for the Gaming and Entertainment Network. Well, TGen, as I like to refer to it because it's a lot easier to say, is a group of like-minded podcasters that have gotten together and kind of formed a podcast network. And the idea there is that it's kind of going to be mutually beneficial for both the podcasters and the podcast listeners. So if you like a show on TGen, like Beyond Bossfights is on TGen, you might like some of these other shows that are out there. And the shows that have joined the network are Aggro Chat, Battle Bards, Beyond Boss Fights, Cat Context, Contains Moderate Peril, Couch Potatoes, Massive Failure, and Roleplay Domain. Now, these podcasts represent a very wide swath of the gaming world. We've got podcasts about gaming news. We've got podcasts about opinion. We've got interview podcasts like Beyond Boss Fights. We've got podcasts about gaming music. We've got podcasts about tabletop gaming and role-playing. So it's just a real wide swath of content, but at the same time, it comes from a very honest place. And that's one of the things that I think is very special about this network is that I know all the folks personally, and although we might not agree on every single gaming issue, there's always intelligent debate to be had. And I think that if you enjoy that type of content, then you're going to enjoy the podcasts in this network. Now, what do the podcasters get out of it? Well, we get to cross-promote one another, for one thing. And we also get to help folks discover other podcasts that we think are great. So that helps us out as well. So if any of that sounds interesting at all to you, TGen is located at tgenetwork.net. And on that site, you can look at all the shows we've got. You can go to a specific show page. You can follow on social networking. You can subscribe to a show feed. Or on the front page, there's actually if you scroll to the very bottom, there are 3 ways you can subscribe to the master feed of all of the podcasts within the network. So you do that one time. You don't have to worry about checking each individual podcast feed to see who's got a new episode that day. Typically, TGen will have a new episode at least 4 or 5, sometimes 6 times a week. Check out tgenetwork.net. Let me know what you think about it. We're always listening. Now, with that in mind, I wanted to feature one of the shows from TGen this month, and that show is Aggro Chat, done by Belgast, Ray, Ashgar, and Kodra. And these guys get together once a week, release on Sunday, and they talk about basically anything that's going on in their gaming world. And they are gaming experts, let me tell you. Every time something is mentioned on that show that has to do with gaming, whether it be video gaming, LARPing, card gaming, these guys have some kind of an opinion on it because they're also experienced. I always learn something listening to Aggro Chat. Here's Belgast to tell you a little bit more.
Hey folks, I'm Belgast of the Aggro Chat podcast. What is our podcast, you ask? Well, the idea is really simple. Get a bunch of friends together, hit record, and see what happens. If that sounds interesting to you, you should totally check us out. We're a proud member of the Gaming and Entertainment Network at tgenetwork.net.
The second major thing that I was involved in this month was the Extra Life Gaming Marathon. And I know some of the folks that listen to this podcast chose to donate to that, and I'm so very, very appreciative. It turned out that I had a $500 goal. I think I said that a couple podcasts ago. And I actually exceeded that goal by $100. It was awesome. I made $600. I raised $600 for the Children's Miracle Network Hospital, St. Louis Children's Hospital, which is the one I chose. And a couple things really, I wasn't sure how the marathon was going to go. I really wanted to do the full 24 hours, and I did end up doing the full 24 hours. But a couple things that surprised me about that were there were folks in my live stream. So I live streamed the whole thing. But there were folks in my live stream for the full 24 hours. There was one guy who made it almost the full 24 hours himself, but basically there was no period of time within that 24 hours that I had 0 viewers on my stream. And I thought that was incredible because I just figured at some point at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, it would be just me sitting out there streaming away to nobody because it's just the dead of the night. But it was really like the only thing I can compare it to is when people are running a marathon and the folks are lining the street just cheering them on. Those folks have more an effect and an impact on the runner than they know. And I know the people in my stream were not there to listen to my cohesive commentary at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they were not there to look at my fantastic gameplay. They were there to cheer me on for the 24 hours, and I really do appreciate that. It was amazing. So once again, thank you for that. I had the raffle drawing yesterday. There is a post on my site about the winners, and they should have all received an email at this point letting them know that they won a game in the raffle. The last thing I wanted to talk about, I didn't want to mention until after Extra Life was over because I didn't want to detract from that. And let me preface this section by saying that I'm not going to beat this over the head. I'm going to say this once on the podcast, and then I'm going to kind of leave it alone. I might put a link on the site, but I haven't quite decided about that yet. I had somebody approach me while the Extra Life donation drive was going on, so within the past few weeks, and ask, listen, I like what you do on the podcast. Is there some way I can give you some money? I'm still going to donate to your Extra Life, but I'd like to kick just a little bit your way for a month and show you my appreciation. So I went out and did some research, and I found that of the sites that allow you to kind of take money, Patreon takes kind of the smallest cut. I mean, I could have gone with PayPal or some of these others, but really Patreon, although it's geared towards monthly donations or recurring donations, takes the smallest cut out of the actual donation. So I signed up for Patreon. I have a page now. It's at patreon.com/Braxwolf. Now, one interesting thing about Patreon is that it is set up to receive recurring donations. There is a way that you can give a single donation, and let me explain really quick how to do that in case you wanted to. Like I said, I'm not asking for anybody to do this, but if this is one of the things you were thinking about approaching me about or whatever, this is how you do that. You sign up for Patreon, you pledge to give a certain dollar amount, and when I post an episode, that dollar amount will be transferred. At that point, you go back in and cancel your pledge, and then that will end up being just the single donation amount. Now, unfortunately, you have to wait until, because I've got it set up this way, you have to wait until I actually post an episode to the Patreon site. And the reason I'm doing it per episode as opposed to per month, which a lot of people do, is because Beyond Boss Fights is a monthly show, and I don't want somebody signing up for a recurring monthly and then having their money deducted if I happen to miss an episode. So what I've done is I've set it up to be a per episode pledge, so that if that happens and I miss a month, then and you've pledged per episode, then you don't donate any money for that month then. Now, here's my promise. If I decide to up my frequency and do more than one episode a month, I will change that on Patreon to be a monthly donation amount, because I don't want people all of a sudden donating 3 times a month when they were only expecting 1. So I'm not going to surprise anybody in that way. Now, that is not anything that's anywhere in the near future or the far future at this point. I do not plan to increase the frequency. I'm not even physically able to increase the frequency of this podcast at that time. But again, it has never been my intention for the listeners of this podcast to pay for the podcast. I would love to be, I love being able to distribute this for free. And Beyond Boss Fights is at this point in no financial trouble or anything like that. But it's out there. It's an option if that's something that you were interested in asking me about. Okay, as for feedback, we didn't receive any feedback this past month, but if you would like to add some feedback to our iTunes, you can do that, and I will read it on the podcast. You can also send your feedback to braxwolf@gmail.com, and I will also read that. Beyond Boss Fights is also on Stitcher, so add it to your playlists, and give us some feedback on there as well. They've got their own feedback mechanism that helps people discover the podcast. Lastly, Beyond Boss Fights has a Nook on anook.com and a forum, so make sure to follow us there and start a conversation of your own. And also, on Anook we have a Nook for the Gaming and Entertainment Network, and that is the new network that I spoke about that has all 8 of the podcasts that I would recommend you follow. So if you want to talk about any of those podcasts, there's also a forum there, and we also post all of the latest episodes for each of those podcasts on that site. Lonrem, thank you very much for being with us today. Could you please let people know how they could get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on anyways. For Twitter followers, that's going to be @anook.com, spelled out. Eventually we will get the @anook handle back. Facebook, that's going to be facebook.com/anook.com, again, spelled out. Got to be consistent. The website is anook.com. I mean, like I said, consistency. That you actually do put the period in there. And then if you are interested in getting involved in Anook, either to really like share your own content or to actually help us out in what we're doing, please feel free to email me. That'll be getinvolved@anook.com. Just say hi, what you might want to do, or what you are doing and how you can use Anook. I will happily get back to you as soon as I can.
And as for me, on Twitter, you can follow me @Braxwolf. That's BRAXWOLF. My email is braxwolf@gmail.com. I've got a Facebook page, facebook.com/Braxwolf. Also got a YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/Braxwolf. And of course, you can always check out my blog at braxwolf.com. Thanks, everybody.